The year 2247 brought humanity something they had dreamed about for centuries: contact with alien life. Not just one species, but 47 different civilizations working together in something called the Galactic Council. Earth's governments could barely contain their excitement when the first message arrived. David Cole never imagined he would become Earth's voice to the stars. He was a diplomat who had spent 20 years settling disputes between nations. Now he found himself walking through the corridors of Station Harmony, a massive structure floating in neutral space between star systems. The walls glowed with soft light, and beings of every imaginable shape moved past him. Some walked on legs, others floated, and a few slithered across the polished floors. His escort was a creature named Quinn. The Silari appeared almost serpentine, with smooth scales that shifted colors when the light hit them. Quinn's voice came through a translator device that turned alien sounds into perfect English. "Ambassador Cole, the Council is very pleased to welcome humanity," Quinn said, guiding him toward a vast chamber. "Your species shows great promise." Rebecca Stone walked 2 steps behind David. She wore the uniform of Earth's Space Force, though calling it a force was generous. Humanity had only managed faster than light travel 3 years ago. Their entire fleet consisted of 32 ships, most of them exploration vessels with minimal weapons. Rebecca had insisted on coming to this meeting. Something about Quinn's constant smiling made her uneasy. The council chamber was breathtaking. Representatives from dozens of species sat in a circular arrangement, each in their own specialized seating. Some needed water tanks. Others sat on platforms of pure energy. At the center stood a holographic display showing the galaxy itself. A massive being that looked like living crystal spoke first. Its voice rumbled through the chamber. "Humanity, you have reached the stars at last. The Council extends its hand in friendship. We offer you membership as a protected junior species." David felt his heart race. This was everything humanity had hoped for. "The people of Earth are honored. We seek only peace and cooperation." Quinn moved forward, presenting a datapad. "The Treaty of Integration has been prepared. It offers humanity access to galactic trade networks, defensive support from Council forces, and guidance as your civilization matures. In return, Earth agrees to certain limitations until your species reaches full development status." Rebecca stepped closer, reading over David's shoulder. The document was hundreds of pages long, written in both English and several alien languages. She noticed clauses about trade restrictions, military limitations, and resource management protocols. "How long until we reach full status?" she asked. "Typically 2 centuries, Quinn answered smoothly. "A brief time in galactic terms. These restrictions protect young species from exploitation by others." David wanted to read every word, but the pressure in the room was intense. 47 civilizations watched and waited. This was humanity's chance to join something greater than themselves. He signed the treaty with Earth's official seal. The council chamber erupted in what David assumed were cheers and congratulations, though many sounded like grinding rocks or whale songs. Quinn touched his shoulder gently. "Welcome to the galactic community, Ambassador. Your people will benefit greatly from council guidance." The celebrations lasted 3 days. David met representatives from worlds humanity had never imagined. They spoke of trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and scientific cooperation. Everything seemed perfect. Rebecca spent those 3 days differently. She talked to other junior species, asking questions about their experiences with the council. Most gave careful diplomatic answers, but one representative, a small furred creature from a world called Terrace, pulled her aside in a quiet corridor. "Be cautious," the being whispered. "The Council's protection comes with costs you will not see immediately." Before Rebecca could ask more, Council security appeared and escorted the Terrace representative away. The incident was explained as a misunderstanding, but Rebecca filed it in her memory. Back on Earth, the treaty was presented to the unified government. World leaders saw it as humanity's greatest achievement. They began implementing the Council's recommendations immediately. Trade routes opened and alien goods flooded Earth markets. The products were incredibly cheap and far superior to human-made items. Within months, Earth's manufacturing sectors began struggling. Why buy an Earth-made computer when a Council device cost half as much and worked 10 times better? Factories closed. Jobs disappeared. The government was told this was normal, a temporary adjustment period. David worked from an office on Station Harmony, managing Earth's integration. He submitted requests for the promised technology transfers. Each time, the Council explained there were delays due to safety reviews or compatibility issues. He asked about opening new trade routes for human ships. The Council cited regulations that required extensive certification processes. 1 year passed. Then 2. The promised benefits never materialized. Meanwhile, Earth's economy weakened as Council goods replaced local production. Human colonies on 3 worlds faced strange supply shortages. Medical equipment would arrive late. Food shipments would be rerouted. The Council blamed bureaucratic errors. Rebecca, now promoted to Admiral, commanded Earth's small defense fleet. She noticed something troubling. Council vessels frequently scanned human ships, claiming it was standard security protocol. But the scans were far more detailed than necessary. They were mapping every human ship, every weapon, every capability. She began her own investigation, assigning her best intelligence officer, Patricia Wong, to monitor Council communications. Patricia was brilliant with encryption and patterns. She worked in secret, knowing that if the Council discovered what she was doing, there could be consequences. 5 years after the treaty signing, Patricia broke through the Council's secured networks. What she found made her blood run cold. She immediately contacted Rebecca and David, showing them the files on a secured channel. The documents revealed everything. Humanity was classified not as a protected junior species, but as Resource Tier Gamma. Earth's star systems contained deposits of rare elements the Council wanted to control. The treaty was designed to lock humanity into economic dependence for 200 years, while the Council extracted what they needed. Worse, they found records of 12 other species given the same treatment. All had signed similar treaties. All had been systematically exploited. Their economies were destroyed, their independence eliminated, their resources flowing to Council worlds. David stared at the proof of the deception. His faith in galactic cooperation crumbled in an instant. They never intended to treat us as equals. Rebecca's jaw tightened. They thought we would be easy victims. Patricia pulled up more files. Sir, there's something else. The Council has been sabotaging our research programs. Anytime we get close to developing something that might make us independent, accidents happen. Scientists die. Labs explode. Data gets corrupted. David thought about his own research team killed 6 months ago in what was called an accident. Now he knew the truth. It was murder. What do we do? Patricia asked. Rebecca looked at both of them. We prepare. Quietly. If the Council learns we know the truth, they will move against us immediately. We need time to get ready. David nodded slowly. The idealistic diplomat was gone, replaced by something harder. Then we start planning. The Council deceived humanity. They think we're helpless. We'll show them exactly how wrong they are. 6 months passed in silence. Humanity had learned to keep secrets, something the Galactic Council never expected from a junior species. While the Council believed Earth was slowly accepting its place in the galactic order, Rebecca Stone was building something in the shadows. Patricia Wong worked 18-hour days in a secure facility buried beneath the Australian outback. Her team of 40 analysts monitored every Council transmission they could intercept. The picture that emerged was worse than anyone imagined. The Council had perfected the art of economic strangulation over 1,000 years. Look at this pattern, Patricia said, projecting data across multiple screens. Rebecca and David stood beside her in the dimly lit operations center. Every junior species follows the same trajectory. Year 1, they're hopeful. Year 5, they're struggling. Year 10, they're completely dependent. By year 20, they can't survive without Council support. Their entire economy runs on Council terms. David traced his finger along one of the graphs. The Terrace species. They signed their treaty 80 years ago. Their homeworld produces rare metals that the Council uses in their ships. In exchange, Terrace gets food shipments because their agriculture collapsed years ago. Deliberate, Rebecca said. The Council flooded their markets with cheap food until their farmers went bankrupt. Now Terrace has to mine metals just to eat. It's not trade. It's slavery with extra steps. Patricia opened another file. I found communications between Council members discussing us. They call it the Integration Protocol. They've done this to 12 species so far. We're number 13. The room went quiet. 13 civilizations, all trapped in the same system. All exploited. All helpless. David broke the silence. We need allies. If we move alone, the Council will crush us. But if we can coordinate with the other trapped species, we might have a chance. First, we need to be ready for war, Rebecca said. She pulled up different images, showing shipyards hidden in asteroid belts and weapons facilities disguised as mining operations. For 3 years, we've been building in secret. The Council thinks we're following treaty restrictions. They're wrong. How many ships? David asked. 60 combat vessels. Small compared to the Council's fleet, but they don't know about them. We've also been developing weapon systems the Council has never seen. Drones that work in swarms, electronic warfare packages, kinetic bombardment systems. Nothing that violates the treaty's letter, but everything that violates its spirit. Patricia smiled grimly. I may have also planted some viruses in Council data networks. Nothing active yet, but when we need them, I can crash their communication systems across 20 star systems simultaneously. David felt a weight settle on his shoulders. They were preparing for war against a power that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. When do we move? Soon, Rebecca said. The Council is getting impatient. They've started making demands. They want Earth to send ships to help suppress a rebellion in the Terrace sector. The Terrace are rebelling? David asked. They've had enough. The Council is starving them because they didn't meet their mining quotas. Apparently, workers dying from exhaustion tends to slow production. Patricia's voice dripped with disgust. The Council wants us to help kill people who are fighting for the same freedom we want. Rebecca nodded. I'm sending the Defiant under Commander Lucas Grant. He knows the real mission. When the Council orders him to fire on Terrace rebels, he's going to refuse. That will be our breakpoint. The moment Earth stands up and says no more. The Council will respond with force, David warned. I'm counting on it, Rebecca said. We need them to make the first move. We need the galaxy to see them as the aggressors. When they come for us, we'll be ready. 3 weeks later, Lucas Grant stood on the bridge of the Defiant, watching a Terrace settlement on his screens. 15 Council ships surrounded the area. The settlement housed 5,000 beings, mostly families. The Council commander was demanding they surrender or be destroyed. Defiant, you will target the settlement's power grid and disable it, the Council commander ordered. Once they are helpless, ground forces will secure the rebels. Lucas looked at his crew. They were young, most of them in their 20s. They had joined Earth's Space Force dreaming of exploration and discovery. Now they faced a choice that would define humanity's future. Sir, what are your orders? His tactical officer asked. Lucas thought about everything humanity had learned. The lies, the exploitation, the 12 other species suffering under Council control. He thought about the 5,000 beings below who just wanted to live free. Send a message to the Council commander, Lucas said clearly. The Defiant refuses this order. We will not fire on civilians seeking freedom. His crew erupted in nervous energy, but no one objected. They all knew what this meant. The Council commander's response was immediate. You are in violation of the treaty. Stand down or be destroyed, then destroy us, Lucas replied. Earth stands with the oppressed, not the oppressors. The Council ships moved to attack positions. Lucas activated his emergency beacon, sending everything that happened directly to Earth and to every human ship in the galaxy. The galaxy needed to see this moment. Before the first shot was fired, something unexpected happened. The Terrace settlement lit up with weapons fire, targeting the Council ground forces. Simultaneously, 20 Terrace ships appeared from behind the planet, old vessels but armed and determined. This is Terrace Commander Rel to Earth Ship Defiant, a voice came through. We monitored your transmission. If you stand with us, we stand with you. Lucas grinned. Defiant to Terrace fleet. Let's show the Council what freedom looks like. The battle lasted 4 hours. The Defiant and Terrace ships used guerrilla tactics, hiding in the planet's atmosphere, striking fast and disappearing. The Council ships were more powerful but couldn't adapt to the chaos. When it ended, 3 Council vessels were destroyed and the others retreated. Lucas knew what came next. The Council wouldn't let this stand. They would make an example of Earth. He was right. Within hours, the Council declared Earth in breach of treaty. All human ships outside Earth's solar system were ordered to surrender. Human diplomats on Station Harmony were arrested. A total economic blockade was imposed. No ships in or out of human space. The Council sent a message to Earth's government. Surrender David Cole, Rebecca Stone, and Lucas Grant for trial, or face military consequences. Earth's unified government met in emergency session. Every leader knew they faced an impossible situation. Accept the Council's demands and remain slaves forever, or fight and probably lose. David stood before them, his voice steady. For 5 years we've lived under a lie. The Council never saw us as equals. They saw us as resources to exploit. We have proof of their crimes. Proof they've done this to 12 other species. Proof they sabotaged our research and murdered our people. We can surrender and die slowly, or we can fight and die with dignity. But there's a third option. We can fight and win. Against the Council's full might. A leader challenged. They have thousands of ships. Rebecca stepped forward. They have thousands of ships designed to intimidate junior species. Ships that haven't faced real combat in centuries. Their crews are comfortable. Their tactics are outdated. And they don't know what we've been building. We have a chance. A real chance. The vote was close, but humanity chose freedom. Earth officially rejected the treaty and demanded the return of all seized ships and imprisoned personnel. They knew the Council would refuse. Sure enough, the Council's response was swift. A peacekeeping fleet of 40 ships was dispatched to Earth. Their mission was to force humanity back into compliance. The Council expected surrender within days. Rebecca watched the enemy fleet approaching on her tactical displays. They would arrive in 72 hours. Plenty of time to prepare one final surprise. Let them come, she said quietly. They're about to learn that humanity doesn't surrender. Not ever. Saturn's rings glittered with fragments of ice and rock, beautiful and ancient. They had orbited the gas giant for billions of years in peaceful silence. That silence was about to end. Admiral Rebecca Stone floated in zero gravity inside the command center of Earth's primary defense station. Around her, holographic displays showed the approaching Council fleet. 40 warships, each 3 times larger than humanity's biggest vessels. They moved in perfect formation, confident and unhurried. Why wouldn't they be? The Council had crushed resistance for 1,000 years. Enemy fleet will reach engagement range in 30 minutes. A tactical officer reported. Rebecca studied the enemy formation. Textbook perfect. Ships arranged in 3 waves. Overlapping fields of fire. Support vessels protected in the center. It was the kind of formation you used when you expected easy victory. When you wanted to look impressive while barely trying. They're not even running active sensor sweeps, Patricia Wong noted from her station. She had come up from Earth specifically for this battle. Her cyber warfare team's ready. They think they know where all our ships are. Do they? Rebecca asked. Patricia grinned. They've detected our 15 orbital defense platforms and the 8 patrol ships we deliberately let them see. They have no idea about the other 42 ships hiding in Saturn's shadow, powered down to minimal signatures. Rebecca allowed herself a small smile. The Council's arrogance would cost them today. They had spent centuries fighting species that couldn't match their technology or tactics. They had never faced an enemy that studied warfare as intensely as humanity did. Every human military academy taught history stretching back thousands of years. Wars between nations, between ideologies, between empires. Humanity had refined the art of killing other humans to a terrible science. The Council was about to experience that knowledge firsthand. All ships, this is Stone. Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to hurt them so badly they think twice about coming back. Hit hard, hit fast, and disappear before they can respond. Trust your training. Trust each other. And remember what we're fighting for. Responses came back from 60 ships scattered throughout the Saturnian system. Humanity was ready. The Council fleet entered Saturn's gravity well, still in perfect formation. Their commander, a being called Drax from a species of warrior priests, sent a final message. Human vessels, you will stand down immediately. Your rebellion ends today. Surrender and the Council may show mercy. Rebecca opened a channel. This is Admiral Stone. The only thing ending today is the Council's illusion of invincibility. You came here expecting easy prey. You're going to learn that humanity is not like the others. She cut the transmission and gave the order. All units execute. Chaos erupted across the battlefield. The 8 visible human ships suddenly split apart, each one revealing 3 smaller vessels that had been docked together. 24 ships scattered in different directions, forcing the Council fleet to divide their targeting. Before the Council could react, those ships launched hundreds of drones, small and fast, swarming toward the enemy formation. Drones are just targets, Drax's tactical officer reported. Activating point defense systems. The Council ships opened fire, energy weapons cutting through the drone swarms. Hundreds died in the first seconds, but there were thousands more and they weren't attacking. They were moving into position, surrounding the Council fleet, creating interference with their electronic signatures. Sir, our sensors are being jammed, the tactical officer said. confusion in their voice. That was when the real attack began. 42 human ships emerged from Saturn's shadow, engines burning at full power. They had been drifting cold and silent, waiting for this moment. Now they screamed into battle, weapons hot. Rebecca's strategy was simple but effective. Don't fight the Council's strengths. Humanity couldn't match them in firepower or armor, but humans could think faster, adapt quicker, and fight meaner than any species that had lived in peace for centuries. The human ships didn't form lines and trade shots like traditional fleet combat. They came in from every angle, using Saturn's rings for cover, targeting the Council's engines and weapon systems instead of trying to pierce their heavy armor. They fired and moved, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted effectively. Multiple impacts on Council vessels, Tactical reported, were crippling their mobility. One Council ship, its engines damaged, began drifting out of formation. 3 human vessels immediately concentrated on it, boarding pods launching before the enemy could recover. Within minutes, human Marines were inside, fighting through corridors. The Council crew had never trained for shipboard combat. The humans had entire units that specialized in nothing else. Drax watched his perfect formation fall apart. His ships were taking damage, unable to coordinate effectively through the electronic warfare. Worse, his crews were panicking. They had expected a quick battle against primitives. Instead, they faced an enemy that seemed to anticipate every move. "Focus fire on the closest human ship," Drax ordered. "Destroy it and the others will flee." His fleet concentrated their weapons on a single human destroyer. The ship's shields collapsed under the massive firepower, and the hull began to breach. It looked like the Council would score their first kill. Then the destroyer exploded deliberately. The human crew had evacuated in escape pods minutes earlier. The explosion tore through 3 Council ships that had closed in for the kill, damaging them severely. They sacrificed their own ship as a weapon, Drax's tactical officer said, disbelief clear in their voice. Patricia's cyber warfare teams chose that moment to strike. Viruses planted months ago in the Council's computer networks activated. Communication systems crashed. Targeting computers glitched. The carefully coordinated fleet became 40 individual ships fighting blind. Rebecca pressed the advantage. "All ships, focus fire on the command vessel." Take out their leadership. 20 human ships converged on Drax's flagship. They hit it from every direction, overwhelming its defenses. The ship's armor held, but its weapons and engines were systematically destroyed. When human boarding teams secured the ship, Drax was found unconscious in his command chamber, unable to believe what had happened. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, 31 Council ships were captured or destroyed. 9 managed to escape, badly damaged and carrying tales of impossible defeat. Human losses were 7 ships destroyed and 14 damaged. The survivors returned to Earth as heroes, but they knew the truth. This was just the first battle. The Council had thousands of ships. Earth had maybe 50 combat-ready vessels left. They had won today through surprise and tactics, advantages that wouldn't last. Lucas Grant, rescued from Council custody during the battle, met with Rebecca and David in the aftermath. "The galaxy needs to know what happened here," David said. "Every species under Council control needs to see that resistance is possible." Rebecca pulled up a star map, showing the location of the 12 other exploited species. "We can't win this war alone. We need allies. Real allies, not Council puppets." Patricia already had a plan. "I can broadcast today's battle data across the entire galactic network. The Council won't be able to suppress it. Every species will see humanity stand up and win." "Do it," David ordered. "And send a message to the terrace. Tell them Earth offers alliance. True alliance as equals. Together we have a chance." Over the next days, the footage of humanity's victory spread across the galaxy. For species that had lived under Council domination for decades or centuries, it was a revelation. The Council could be beaten. The mighty could fall. In the Terrace system, Commander Rel watched the footage 3 times. Then she sent a message to Earth. "The Terrace people accept your alliance. We will stand together against tyranny." Other messages began arriving. Quiet, cautious inquiries from 6 other exploited species. They were afraid, but they were also hopeful. Earth had shown them something they thought was impossible. Freedom could be fought for and won. On Station Harmony, the Council convened in emergency session. High Counselor Draven, the crystalline being who led the Council's hardline faction, addressed the assembly. This human rebellion must be crushed absolutely. We will commit 400 ships to their extermination. We will make an example that will echo across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. No species will ever dare challenge the Council again. But in the back chambers, other Council members whispered different thoughts. If humanity could win, what did that mean for the system they had built? What happened when the exploited realized they outnumbered the exploiters? Quinn, the Solari who had first welcomed humanity to the Council, listened to those whispers. For the first time in a long career, doubt crept into their mind. Had the Council become the very thing it once opposed? The galaxy stood at a crossroads. War was coming, bigger and bloodier than anything seen in 5 centuries. But now for the first time the outcome wasn't certain. Detention Complex Omega floated in empty space between star systems, deliberately placed where no one would accidentally find it. The Council had built it 200 years ago to hold prisoners they wanted the galaxy to forget. Rebels, dissidents, anyone who questioned the perfect order of things. Inside its cold metal walls, 2,000 human prisoners waited in cells designed for beings half their size. They had been captured when the Council seized human ships. Some had been there for months. All of them believed Earth had forgotten them. They were wrong. Commander Lucas Grant studied the prison complex from 3 million kilometers away. His ship, the Retribution, hung in silent darkness along with 29 other human vessels. The fleet had traveled for 2 weeks to reach this place using stolen Council navigation data. The prison's defenses are impressive, his tactical officer reported. Energy shields, automated weapons platforms, a garrison of 300 Council guards, and 4 patrol ships in orbit. And inside? Lucas asked. 2,000 of ours. According to Patricia's intelligence, there are also prisoners from the other exploited species. Maybe 15,000 total. Lucas nodded slowly. The plan was risky, but they had learned something important at Saturn. The Council built defenses expecting traditional warfare. They never considered what humans called special operations. Small teams. Precise strikes. Maximum chaos, all teams, final equipment check. We go in 15 minutes. Across the human fleet, 300 Marines prepared for combat. They wore armor designed for close quarters battle, carried weapons meant for corridors and tight spaces, and trained for months for exactly this kind of mission. The Council guards were about to face something they had never encountered before. Patricia Wong's voice came through from Earth, transmitted through relay stations to avoid detection. I'm in position. When you're ready, I'll crash their communication network. They won't be able to call for help for at least 2 hours. Rebecca here, the Admiral's voice followed. The rest of the fleet is moving into position around 3 other prison complexes. We're hitting all of them simultaneously. The Council won't know which target to reinforce. Lucas appreciated the coordination. This wasn't just a rescue. It was a message. The Council had taken prisoners thinking humanity couldn't reach them. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Patricia, execute, Lucas ordered. Somewhere in the digital space between stars, Patricia's carefully crafted viruses came alive. They had been planted in the Council's communication network weeks ago, dormant and undetected. Now they activated, creating cascade failures across military channels. The prison complex suddenly found itself isolated, unable to send or receive messages. Their shields are still up, Tactical reported. Not for long, Lucas said. Fire the pulse charge. A single missile streaked toward the prison, not explosive but electromagnetic. It detonated against the shields, releasing a pulse that overloaded the protective field generators. The shields flickered and died. Before the Council guards could react, human boarding pods launched. They weren't trying to dock normally. Instead, they used breaching charges to punch directly through the prison's hull in 6 different locations. Marines poured through the holes, moving fast and violent. The Council guards were trained for prison duty, not combat against determined soldiers. The humans moved through corridors in tight formations, clearing rooms with practiced efficiency. Any guard that tried to fight was quickly overwhelmed. Most simply surrendered, confused and terrified. Lucas led one team directly to the cell blocks. The first thing he saw when the doors opened were the human prisoners cramped in spaces too small, barely fed, exhausted and hopeless. Until they saw him. United States Marine Corps, Lucas said simply. We're taking you home. The prisoners couldn't speak at first. They had believed themselves abandoned. Seeing human soldiers seeing rescue was almost too much to process. Then one man, A merchant ship captain started laughing. Others joined in. Within seconds, the entire cell block was cheering. "Sir, we found the other prisoners," another team reported. "You need to see this." Lucas moved to the next section. There he found beings from 11 different species, all labeled as junior species by the Council. They had been imprisoned for various crimes, mostly related to resisting Council exploitation. They stared at the human Marines with a mixture of fear and hope. "We're here to free everyone," Lucas told them. "If you want to fight back against the Council, we'll give you that chance. If you just want to go home, we'll help you do that too. But nobody stays in this prison." A being that looked like a massive insect, one of the terrorist species, stepped forward. "You would free us? We are not your people." "No, but your people fighting for the same thing we are, freedom. That makes you our allies." The rescued prisoners were evacuated to the human ships. The prison complex, now empty except for restrained Council guards, was rigged with explosives. Lucas wanted to send a message, and destroying Council property definitely sent one. As the fleet prepared to leave, they detected incoming ships. 4 Council patrol vessels had somehow gotten through the communication blackout and were coming to investigate. "Should we run?" his tactical officer asked. Lucas thought about the 15,000 freed prisoners watching from the human ships. They needed to see that Earth wasn't just lucky at Saturn. They needed to see that humanity could win consistently. "No, we fight. All ships attack pattern Delta. Let's make this quick." The human fleet spread out using the same swarming tactics that worked at Saturn. The Council ships were outnumbered 7-1 and never stood a chance. Within 20 minutes, 3 were captured and 1 destroyed. The captured ships were valuable prizes, their technology ready to be studied and copied. The journey back to friendly space took 3 weeks. During that time, Lucas got to know the freed prisoners. They shared stories of Council oppression, of treaties that were traps, of systematic exploitation that had lasted decades. A young being from a species called the Vorin spoke to Lucas one evening. "My people signed the treaty 70 years ago. We thought it meant partnership. Instead, the Council took control of our water purification systems. Now we pay them for clean water on our own planet. If we don't meet their payment demands, they shut down the systems and our people die of thirst." Lucas felt rage building in his chest. How many other species have similar stories? "All of us," the Vorin said simply. "The 12 junior species. All trapped the same way. Your people are the first to fight back in a century." When the fleet finally reached Earth space, they found something unexpected. Ships from the Terrace system had arrived, bringing supplies and offering military support. The Terrace fleet was small and old, but they came anyway. Commander Rel met with Lucas and Rebecca in person. "My government has decided. We're done being victims. If Earth stands against the Council, Terrace stands with Earth. The Council will come at you with everything," Rebecca warned. "Are your people ready for that?" Rel's insect-like features couldn't show human emotions, but her voice was firm. "We've been dying slowly for 80 years. If we're going to die, better to die fighting for freedom than starving under the Council's boot." Over the next weeks, more species made contact. 8 in total declared independence from the Council and formed what they called the Coalition of Free Worlds. Earth was the strongest military power, but each species brought something valuable. The Terras had industrial capacity. The Vorin were experts in water and environmental systems. Others contributed food production, medical knowledge, or strategic resources. Patricia worked with representatives from each species, sharing everything humanity had learned about the Council's tactics. In return, they provided information about Council military bases, supply routes, and internal politics. David Cole became the Coalition's primary diplomat, working to keep the alliance strong while also reaching out to neutral species. Some were interested. Others were afraid. A few even sent messages of support in secret, unwilling to openly defy the Council but hoping the Coalition would win. On Station Harmony, High Councilor Draven convened the full Council. His crystalline form glowed with anger as he addressed the assembly. "The humans have freed prisoners from 4 detention facilities. They have inspired rebellion among 8 junior species. They have destroyed or captured 57 of our ships. This cannot be tolerated. I propose immediate and overwhelming military response. 400 ships all directed at crushing Earth and its pathetic alliance." Some Council members agreed. Others hesitated. Quinn spoke up, their voice careful. "High Councilor, perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans have proven surprisingly capable. If we commit our full military, we risk escalating this into a true war. They already started a war, Draven shot back. We will finish it. The Council has maintained order for 1,000 years. We will not allow primitive species to tear down what we've built. The vote was called. By a narrow margin, the Council approved the military action. 400 ships would be gathered and sent to crush the rebellion. The Council was confident. After all, they still had thousands of ships in reserve. How could 8 small species possibly stand against them? They were about to find out that numbers weren't everything. Sometimes the will to fight mattered more than the size of your fleet, and nobody had more will than people fighting for their freedom. 3 months into the war, nobody was winning. Bodies floated in the wreckage of destroyed ships across 20 star systems. Both sides bled resources and lives in battles that solved nothing. The galaxy was burning, and there seemed no end in sight. Rebecca Stone looked exhausted as she studied tactical reports in her command center deep under the Pacific Ocean. The coalition had grown to 8 species fighting together, but they were still massively outnumbered. The Council had committed 400 ships as promised, and those ships were pushing hard. We won at the Nova Corridor, her chief of staff reported, highlighting a star map. But we lost badly at the Centris Junction. Overall, we're trading at about even rates. For every Council ship we destroy, we lose one of ours. That's not sustainable, Rebecca said quietly. They have 10 times our numbers. Even trades mean we lose eventually. The coalition species are sending everything they have. The Terrace just launched their last reserve fleet. The Varine are converting civilian ships into military vessels. Everyone is giving everything. Rebecca knew the truth. They were losing the war of attrition. The coalition needed something to change the equation fundamentally. They needed either more allies or fewer enemies. David Cole was working on both problems. He had spent the past weeks in diplomatic sessions with neutral species, trying to convince them to join the coalition or at least stay neutral. Some were sympathetic but afraid. The Council's power was still immense, and nobody wanted to be on the losing side when the war ended. Then Patricia found something that changed everything. She burst into Rebecca's office with her tablet, her face showing the kind of excitement that comes from discovering a weapon that might win a war. I've been analyzing the Council's internal communications for patterns, Patricia said, pulling up files faster than Rebecca could read them. I found something. The Council isn't united. There are factions. The hardliners led by Draven want to crush us completely. But there's a moderate faction that thinks this war is stupid and expensive. How big is the moderate faction? 18 of the 47 Council species. Not enough to change policy, but enough to matter. And get this, Quinn is part of that faction, the same Solari who welcomed us to the Council 5 years ago. I think Quinn feels guilty about what happened. Rebecca leaned forward. Can we use that? Maybe. If we could prove to the moderate faction that the war is unwinnable, they might force a peace deal. Or at least convince some Council species to withdraw their support. How do we prove it's unwinnable? Patricia smiled. We win a battle so decisively that it terrifies them. We show them that even with superior numbers, they can't beat us. The opportunity came 2 weeks later. Council intelligence learned about a major coalition supply convoy heading to the Terrace homeworld. 20 transport ships carrying food, medicine, and military equipment. The Council committed 80 warships to intercept and destroy it. What Council intelligence didn't know was that Patricia had fed them that information deliberately. The real convoy had taken a different route days ago. The ships the Council was about to attack were military vessels disguised as transports, backed by the entire coalition fleet hiding in nearby nebula clouds. Admiral Rebecca Stone commanded the coalition forces herself. 50 human ships, 30 Terrace vessels, and smaller contingents from 6 other species. 105 ships total against 80 Council warships. Remember the plan, Rebecca transmitted to all coalition vessels. We're not just here to win. We're here to send a message. We want prisoners. We want captured ships. We want the Council to see this battle and realize they can't win. The Council fleet arrived first, confident and aggressive. When they detected the transport convoy, they moved to attack formation immediately. That was when Rebecca sprung the trap. Coalition ships poured out of the nebula from 3 directions simultaneously. The Council fleet found itself surrounded, outnumbered, and completely surprised. But numbers alone wouldn't win this fight. Rebecca had something else planned. Lucas Grant led a boarding action on the Council flagship. His Marines had practiced this specific scenario for weeks. They cut through the hull in multiple locations, creating confusion and chaos. The Council crew tried to resist, but they weren't trained for shipboard combat against humans who had been perfecting that art for generations. Within an hour, Lucas had control of the flagship's bridge. The Council commander, a being called Rax, stood surrounded by human marines. "You will be treated according to military law," Lucas told him. "Surrender your fleet and no one else needs to die today." Rax looked at the human with something like respect. "Your species learns quickly. I will order my ships to stand down." The Battle of the Nova Corridor ended with 73 Council ships captured intact and 7 destroyed. Coalition losses were minimal, 12 ships damaged and none destroyed. It was the most decisive victory of the war. Patricia made sure the entire battle was recorded and broadcast across the galaxy within hours. Every species, council and neutral alike, watched coalition forces achieve what shouldn't have been possible. The psychological impact was immense. On Station Harmony, the moderate faction used the defeat to push for emergency negotiations. Quinn led the effort, speaking passionately about the cost of continuing the war. "We have lost over 200 ships in 3 months, Quinn argued. "Our economy is suffering. Our people are questioning why we're fighting. And for what? To maintain control over species that don't want to be controlled? Is this who we are?" Draven's crystalline form glowed with fury. "We are the Council. We maintain order. If we allow these rebels to succeed, the entire galactic order will collapse." "Maybe it should," a voice spoke up. It belonged to a representative from one of the Council's older species, one that had been members for 600 years. "Perhaps we've forgotten why the Council was formed in the first place. It was meant to promote cooperation, not exploitation. When did we become oppressors?" The Council chamber erupted in argument. For the first time in centuries, the Council was deeply divided. While the politicians argued, the war continued. But now there was a new development. 3 Council species, influenced by the moderate faction, quietly withdrew their military support. They didn't join the coalition, but they refused to send more ships against it. David received messages from 4 neutral species expressing interest in alliance. They had been watching and waiting to see who would win. The Battle of the Nova Corridor had convinced them that the coalition had a real chance. The war was expanding, but it was also transforming. It was no longer just coalition versus council. It was becoming a galaxy-wide debate about freedom, justice, and what kind of civilization they all wanted to be. Then came the tragedy that would change everything. A council commander, desperate for a victory, used a forbidden weapon on the coalition colony world of New Perth. 400,000 beings died in seconds, humans and coalition species alike, when the planet's atmosphere was ignited. The weapon was called a thermogenic bomb, and the Council had banned its use 200 years ago as too inhumane. But Draven had secretly authorized its deployment as a terror weapon. He wanted to show the coalition what happened when you defied the Council. Instead, he showed the galaxy what the Council had become. Images of New Perth's burned surface spread everywhere. Neutral species recoiled in horror. Even some hardline Council members questioned whether this was acceptable. Rebecca stood at a memorial service for the New Perth victims, her face carved from stone. She had lost friends on that world, colleagues, people who trusted Earth to protect them. "This is what we're fighting," she told the assembled coalition forces. "This is what the Council does when they're losing. They murder innocents and call it victory. We will not let their deaths be meaningless. We will end this war. We will end the Council's tyranny. And we will build something better." Lucas stood beside her, his jaw tight with rage. "How do we respond?" "We show them that becoming monsters to fight monsters isn't the answer," Rebecca said. "We win this war the right way. We show the galaxy there's a difference between us and them. That's how we honor the dead." Patricia had been analyzing Council communications since the New Perth attack. The moderate faction is in open revolt. 6 Council species are threatening to leave the Council entirely unless Draven is removed from power. The Council is tearing itself apart. David saw the opportunity. "We need to offer terms. Not surrender terms. Peace terms. A way for the Council to end this war without losing face completely. If we can split the moderates away from the hardliners, we might end this without destroying the entire galactic civilization." "What about justice for New Perth?" Lucas demanded. "That comes too," David promised. "We demand a war crimes tribunal. Independent judges from neutral species. Anyone who used banned weapons or ordered atrocities will face justice. including Draven. The coalition sent its peace proposal to the moderate faction secretly. The terms were clear: immediate ceasefire, dissolution of all exploitative treaties, war crimes trials, and formation of a new galactic government based on equality and consent. The moderate faction took the terms to the full council. The debate lasted 3 days. Draven fought against it with everything he had, but the images from New Perth had turned too many against him. Finally, a vote was called. By a margin of 27-20, the council accepted negotiations. The war wasn't over yet, but for the first time, there was hope it might end without the complete destruction of everything. 8 months after the first shot was fired, Station Harmony found itself surrounded by ships that weren't there to trade or negotiate peacefully. The coalition fleet, grown to 200 vessels from 8 different species, had come for one purpose: to end the war. High Counselor Draven stood in the council chamber watching the tactical displays. His crystalline body reflected the red warning lights that flashed throughout the station. The moderate faction had already evacuated, claiming they wanted no part in what came next. Only the hardliners remained, 20 species that still believed the council's old ways could be maintained by force. "We have 300 ships defending the station," his military commander reported. "If we hold here, we can negotiate from a position of strength." Draven knew that was a lie. They had already lost. The question now was whether they would accept defeat with dignity or drag the galaxy through more bloodshed. He made his choice. If the council was ending, it would end his way. All ships fight to the last. We do not surrender to primitives and rebels. The battle began with the coalition forces not attacking immediately. Instead, David Cole's voice broadcast across all channels, speaking to both the council defenders and the billions watching across the galaxy. Today doesn't have to end in more death. The council's crimes have been documented. The exploitation, the manipulation, the murder of innocents. We have proof, and that proof will be shared with everyone. High Counselor Draven, you have a choice. Surrender now and face trial, or fight and die for a system that was corrupt from the start. For a moment, nothing happened. Then 5 council ships broke formation and powered down their weapons. Then 10 more. Then 20. Entire crews were refusing to die for leaders who had lied to them. Within an hour, 100 ships had surrendered without firing a shot. The remaining 200 vessels, loyal to Draven to the end, opened fire. The Battle of Station Harmony would be remembered as both the bloodiest and most pointless fight of the war. Coalition forces could have destroyed the station easily, but Rebecca had given strict orders to minimize casualties. She wanted justice, not massacre. Lucas Grant led boarding teams onto the station itself while the space battle raged around them. Marines fought through corridors, facing defenders who knew they were on the wrong side of history, but fought anyway out of misplaced loyalty. It was brutal work, and Lucas hated every second of it. He found Draven in the council chamber, the crystalline being surrounded by his last loyal guards. They had barricaded themselves in, ready for a final stand. "It's over," Lucas called out. "Your fleet is defeated. Your allies have surrendered. You can end this now." "The council cannot end." Draven's voice resonated through the chamber. "We maintained order for 1,000 years. Without us, the galaxy descends into chaos." "No," Lucas replied. "Without you, the galaxy becomes free. There's a difference between order and oppression. You forgot that somewhere along the way. Draven's guards attacked, but they were bureaucrats and politicians, not soldiers. Lucas's Marines subdued them quickly. When they reached Draven himself, the crystalline being was broadcasting his last message to the galaxy. Remember the council. Remember order. What comes next will be worse. Then he deactivated his life support systems, choosing death over trial. Lucas felt no satisfaction in the moment. Draven was gone, but the damage he represented would take generations to heal. The battle ended within hours. The coalition had won, but at a cost. 40 ships destroyed, thousands dead on both sides, and Station Harmony severely damaged. Rebecca stood in the station's main docking bay, accepting the formal surrender from the remaining council military commanders. "The war is over," she announced. "What happens next will be decided by all of us together, not imposed by force." Over the following weeks, a new government was formed. They called it the Democratic Federation of Worlds. Every species, regardless of size or power, received equal representation. Treaties were required to be transparent and mutually beneficial. Exploitation of any kind was banned and enforceable through Federation law. David Cole became the first Secretary General, elected by representatives from 63 species. It wasn't a position he wanted, but someone had to build the new system, and he understood better than most what needed to change. War crimes trials began on a neutral world, with judges selected from species that had remained neutral during the conflict. 47 council leaders stood accused of exploitation, murder, and abuse of power. Quinn was among those tried, though the charges against them were lesser. They had participated in the exploitation, but had also worked to end it. The trials lasted 6 months. In the end, 32 council leaders were found guilty and sentenced to imprisonment. The rest, including Quinn, were given suspended sentences and required to participate in rebuilding efforts. It wasn't perfect justice, but it was justice nonetheless. Patricia Wong established the Galactic Truth Commission, documenting 1,000 years of council crimes. The database was made public, accessible to anyone who wanted to understand how the system had been corrupted. Education, she believed, was the only way to prevent it from happening again. Rebecca retired from military service once the new Federation was stable. She had done what she set out to do, protecting humanity and fighting for freedom. Now she wanted peace. She moved to a quiet colony world where she could finally rest. Lucas Grant took a different path. He became the first commander of the Federation Security Force, a military organization designed to protect member species from external threats, not to impose control. It was a delicate balance, and he spent years developing protocols that emphasized defense and cooperation over aggression. The new Perth Memorial was built on Earth, a simple structure listing the names of all 400,000 victims, a reminder of what the war had cost and why it could never happen again. People from across the galaxy visited it, mourning and learning. 10 years after the war ended, David stood at that memorial during the annual remembrance ceremony. Representatives from 40 species attended, united in grief and determination. The galaxy had changed so much in a decade. "We were deceived," David said in his speech. The council promised cooperation but delivered exploitation. They thought we would accept it like the others before us. But humanity had learned something from our own bloody history. Freedom isn't given, it's fought for. And once you have it, you must protect it constantly, because there will always be those who want to take it away. He looked out at the crowd, seeing humans and aliens standing together, no longer divided by arbitrary classifications of junior and senior species. "We issued retribution, not out of vengeance, but because justice demanded it. The council fell because it was built on lies. The Federation will survive because it's built on truth. That's the difference. That's what we fought for. That's what they died for." In the crowd, Rebecca listened to the speech and thought about how far they had come, from that first meeting on Station Harmony, when humanity was so eager to join the galactic community, to this moment where they helped lead it. The journey had been painful and costly, but it was worth it. Quinn stood nearby, their scales no longer shifting with diplomatic pleasantness, but settled into a somber gray. They had spent the past decade working to undo the damage they had helped create. It would never be enough to balance the scales, but it was something. "Do you think it will last?" Quinn asked Rebecca quietly. "This Federation, this equality." Rebecca considered the question carefully. "If we work at it, if we stay vigilant, if we remember the cost of failure." She gestured to the memorial. "These people died because the council forgot that power without accountability leads to corruption. As long as we remember that lesson, we have a chance." Across the galaxy, 63 species were learning to work together as true equals. Trade flowed freely based on mutual benefit. Technology was shared without restrictions. Military alliances were built on consent, not coercion. It wasn't perfect. There were still disputes and disagreements. But now those conflicts were resolved through negotiation and law, not exploitation and force. The Terrace people rebuilt their agriculture, no longer dependent on council food shipments. The Vorin regained control of their water systems. Each exploited species began the long process of recovering their independence and dignity. Humanity's role in the Federation was unique. They weren't the most technologically advanced species. They weren't the largest or most powerful, but they were respected because when others accepted oppression, humanity had chosen to fight. They had shown the galaxy that resistance was possible, and that victory was achievable. In schools across Federation space, children learned about the war, not as a story of heroes and villains, but as a complex history of how civilizations can lose their way and how courage can bring them back. The human concept of standing up for what's right, even when it's dangerous, became part of galactic culture. Patricia often gave lectures about the importance of transparency and information. The council maintained power through secrets and lies, she would tell students. They controlled information to control people. The Federation survives because we refuse to let that happen again. Truth is our strongest defense against tyranny. Years passed. The generation that fought the war grew older. New leaders emerged who had never lived under council exploitation. They knew the history, but they hadn't experienced it. Maintaining their commitment to freedom would be the next challenge. David's final speech as Secretary General addressed that concern directly. Those of us who remember the council are dying out. Soon the war will be history, not memory. That's when you must be most careful. Freedoms are lost gradually. One small compromise at a time. Stay vigilant, question authority, and never ever accept that any species is more deserving of rights than another. He stepped down afterward, satisfied that the Federation was strong enough to continue without him. He had done his part. The rest was up to the next generation. On the anniversary of the Battle of Station Harmony, now celebrated as Federation Day, people across the galaxy took a moment to remember. Not just the war, but what it meant. The Council had deceived humanity, thinking them easy to control. But humanity, along with allies who refused to stay victims, had issued retribution, not through revenge but through justice. Not through destruction, but through building something better. The galaxy was free, and it would stay that way as long as people remembered the cost of that freedom. Rith had studied 43 species during his career as a xenobiologist. He could identify a predator within seconds of observation. The eyes gave it away first, then the muscle structure, then the hunting patterns burned into their genetic code. When the humans arrived at the Galactic Council, Rith saw nothing that concerned him. Their delegation walked into the Grand Chamber with careful steps. 3 humans led by a woman who introduced herself as Patricia Hayes. She smiled often. Her teeth were flat, mostly, with only slight points at the corners. Herbivore teeth, Rith noted in his datapad, or perhaps omnivore leaning toward plant consumption. The Galactic Council had seen this before. A species discovers faster than light travel, gets excited, comes asking for membership. Most were peaceful. A few were aggressive and got rejected quickly. Humans seemed to fall into the first category. "We come seeking friendship," Patricia said. Her voice was soft. "Earth wishes to join the galactic community as partners, not conquerors." Rith watched from his observation post. The human body language was open, non-threatening. Their representative wore no armor, carried no visible weapons. When the Krell ambassador asked about human military capabilities, Patricia answered honestly. "We have a defensive fleet," she said. "Nothing compared to established powers. We believe in proportional response and rules of engagement." The Krell ambassador, a massive creature with natural armor plating, laughed. It was not a kind sound. "Rules of engagement? How quaint." Patricia smiled again. That smile bothered Rith, though he could not say why. It never reached her eyes quite right. The Council assigned Rith to study the humans. Standard procedure for new species. He would live among them, learn their culture, write a comprehensive report. It seemed like easy work. For 3 months, Rith observed the human delegation. They were polite to everyone. They attended every council session. They asked questions about trade routes and cultural exchange programs. Boring questions, safe questions. Rith examined their biological data. Humans had evolved on a death world, which was interesting. Earth had extreme temperatures, dangerous weather, and thousands of predator species. Yet humans had no natural armor, no venom, no claws worth mentioning. They were not even particularly strong compared to other species their size. "How did your species survive?" Rith asked Patricia one day over a meal. She paused with food halfway to her mouth. "We adapted. We learned. We worked together. But you had no natural defenses, we made our own." That smile again. "We are very good at making things." The peaceful months ended on a Tuesday. Rith learned later that Tuesday was a human measurement of time, one of their 7-day cycles. He would remember that detail forever. The Krell Empire had been pushing boundaries. Small violations at first, A ship entering human space without permission. Mining operations on disputed asteroids. The humans filed formal complaints each time. They asked for mediation. They suggested compromise. The Krell saw weakness. News reached the council chambers in the form of emergency broadcasts. 3 human colony worlds were under attack. The Krell Empire had sent war fleets declaring the human presence in that sector illegal. They demanded immediate evacuation. Rith rushed to find Patricia. She was in her quarters watching the reports on a view screen. Her face was very still. "They are killing civilians," Rith said. "You must respond. The council will support defensive action." Patricia turned to look at him. Her eyes were different now, colder. "We are responding. Our fleets are moving into position." "But your military doctrine," Rith said. "You spoke of proportional response. Surely you will negotiate first?" "We tried negotiating for 3 months." Patricia stood up. She was shorter than Rith, but suddenly he felt small. "They chose this. We gave them every chance to stop. What will you do?" Patricia walked to the window overlooking the station. Outside, stars burned in the eternal dark. "We gave the Krell an ultimatum. 24 hours to withdraw their forces. They have 23 hours left. And if they refuse," she did not turn around, "then they will learn why humans invented the word war in 4,000 different languages." Rith left her quarters feeling confused. The statement made no sense. Surely all species had words for war. Conflict was universal. Yet something in Patricia's tone made his skin prickle with instinctive alarm. He spent the remaining hours researching human history in their public databases. What he found made him stop eating for 2 days. Humans had been fighting wars for 10,000 years. Not occasional territorial disputes like most species. Constant, brutal, innovative warfare. They had fought with stones, then metal, then explosives, then atomic weapons, then weapons that made atomic bombs look primitive. They had fought over land, resources, ideas, and sometimes for reasons that made no sense to Rith at all. The records showed details that Rith's mind rejected at first. Humans had killed billions of their own kind. They had destroyed entire cities in single attacks. They had invented weapons specifically designed to cause maximum suffering. They had written books, songs, and poems about warfare. They celebrated wars in their culture. They taught war in their schools. And then somehow they had stopped fighting each other long enough to reach the stars. The 24 hours expired. Rith waited for news of human surrender. The Krell fleet outnumbered the human forces 4-1. This would be a massacre. The first reports came in 3 hours later. Rith read them twice, certain there was a translation error. The Krell fleet was retreating. They had lost 60% of their ships. A human colony world called Blackwater still stood, burning but defiant. Rith pulled up the battle footage. He watched it 3 times. Then he went to his quarters and composed a message to the Galactic Council. "I was wrong," he wrote. "We are all wrong about the humans. They are not prey species elevated by luck. They are predators who learned to smile. I need more time to study them. I need to understand what we have just welcomed into the galaxy." He sent the message and sat in the dark, thinking about Patricia's smile and the cold emptiness in her eyes when she spoke of war. Outside his window, human ships passed by the station, heading toward their next deployment. They moved with precision and purpose. Rith finally understood what had bothered him about human smiles. They were a choice, not a reflex. Humans could turn them on and off like switches, and when the smile disappeared, what remained underneath was something that had been hunting and killing for 10,000 years. Sleep would not come easily tonight. The observation ship hung 2 million kilometers from Blackwater Colony, far enough to be safe but close enough to record everything. Rith pressed his face against the viewing port, watching explosions bloom like flowers in the dark. He had volunteered for this assignment. The Galactic Council wanted documentation of the human defeat. Everyone expected surrender within days. The Krell had sent 200 warships. The humans had 52 ships defending 1 mining colony. Basic mathematics made the outcome obvious. Except the humans were still fighting on day 8. "Another human ship down," announced the observation team leader, a Vrel named Casson. "That makes 19 they have lost." "The colony?" Rith asked. "Still operational. Still broadcasting defiance." Casson's 4 eyes blinked in confusion. "I do not understand their strategy. They lose ships but protect empty buildings. The civilians evacuated 6 days ago. Rith understood, though the knowledge sat in his stomach like ice. They are not protecting buildings. They are making a point. On the view screen, a human destroyer limped through space-trailing atmosphere and debris. Its engines were failing. Its weapons still fired. A Krell battleship moved to finish it off, and the human ship turned directly toward it. "What is that captain doing?" Cassin asked. "Retreat is the only logical option." The human ship accelerated. Rith realized the truth a second before impact. He is not retreating. He is the weapon now. The destroyer struck the Krell battleship's reactor core at full speed. Both ships vanished in a sphere of white light that left spots in Rith's vision. The blast wave caught 2 more Krell ships, sending them spinning out of formation. Silence filled the observation deck. Finally, a junior analyst spoke. "That was a command ship. The captain killed himself and took a vessel worth 50 times his own ship's value. Suicidal species are not uncommon," Cassin said, but his voice was uncertain. "They will burn themselves out quickly." Rith said nothing. He was reading the communication logs his team had intercepted. Human ships coordinating attacks. Human commanders giving orders. Not a single voice showed panic. No begging. No desperation. Just cold clinical military language discussing optimal kill ratios and acceptable loss percentages. One communication made Rith's blood run cold. A human captain reporting to Fleet Command. Ammunition at 30%. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Casualty rate 72%. Continuing engagement. "We can take 3 more with us before core breach. Recommend you note our firing solution for future tactical planning." They were treating their own deaths as data points. As learning opportunities, Day 9 brought a shift in Krell strategy. They stopped trying to destroy the human ships and focused on the colony itself. Orbital bombardment began at dawn. The human fleet, now down to 23 ships, moved to intercept. Rith watched what happened next and finally understood what Patricia had meant about proportional response. Humans did not respond proportionally. They responded absolutely. Every human ship launched every weapon simultaneously. They did not care about conserving ammunition or maintaining defensive positions. They fired everything: missiles, railguns, energy weapons, objects that Rith could not even identify. The space between the fleets became solid light. 14 human ships died in the first minute. They took 38 Krell ships with them. The Krell formation broke. Ships scattered, trying to escape the killing field. Human ships pursued them individually, hunting them down one by one. A damaged human frigate chased a Krell cruiser for 6 hours before finally landing a killing shot. The frigate exploded 4 minutes later, its reactor finally giving out, but the cruiser was already dead. By day 12, the Krell fleet was running. 120 ships had entered the battle. 78 were destroyed. The survivors jumped to faster-than-light speed and fled. Every single human ship was gone. All 52 destroyed, but Blackwater Colony still stood, damaged but alive. Its guns still pointed at the stars. Rith received permission to visit the colony. He took a shuttle down to the surface, past debris fields that had been ships, past frozen bodies floating in the void. The colony commander met him at the landing pad. Her name was Lisa Huang. She wore a uniform covered in burn marks and dried blood. Her left arm was in a medical cast. "Welcome to Blackwater," she said. "Sorry about the mess." Rith looked at the burning buildings and cratered streets. "You lost everything. We lost ships. We lost people. We did not lose the colony." Lisa started walking and Rith followed. "That was the point. I do not understand. 52 ships and thousands of lives gone. For what, a mining operation?" Lisa stopped walking. She turned to face him directly. "You are thinking like a traitor. This was not about resources. This was about a message." "What message?" "That attacking humans costs more than victory is worth." She pointed at the debris field above. "The Krell lost 60% of their fleet. They will need years to rebuild." "And for what?" "They gained nothing. Every ship they destroyed took multiple Krell ships with it. Every soldier who died here killed 5 of theirs first." Rith followed her through the colony. Everywhere he looked, he saw exhausted humans repairing damage. They moved with efficiency despite their injuries. No one complained. No one cried. They worked. "Your people do not seem sad," Rith observed. Lisa smiled. It was the same smile Patricia used, the one that did not reach the eyes. "We are sad, we grieve. But we do that later, in private. Right now we have work to do." She took him to a memorial wall. Names covered the surface. Thousands of names. The dead from the battle. We will remember them, Lisa said quietly. Every single one. That is what humans do. We remember, and we make sure their deaths meant something. Rith spent 3 days at Blackwater, interviewing survivors and examining battle recordings. Every conversation taught him the same lesson. Humans did not fight to win quickly. They fought to make victory impossible for their enemies. Before leaving, he asked Lisa one final question. The Krell fleet outnumbered you 4-1. You knew you could not win. Why not evacuate completely? Lisa looked up at the stars. Because if we ran from Blackwater, we would have to run from the next colony. And the next. And eventually from Earth itself. Better to make a stand here. Better to teach them that humans are not prey. And if the Krell had won? They did not win. That is all that matters. She turned to face him. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? It is not our weapons. It is that we decide what is worth dying for and then we do it without hesitation. We are not suicidal. We are committed. Rith returned to his observation ship with more questions than answers. That night, he wrote in his personal log, the humans lost every ship. They celebrated it as victory. I am beginning to suspect they were holding back during their diplomatic phase. What I saw at Blackwater was not their full capability. It was a warning shot. Below his notes, he added one more line. The Krell Empire has just declared the formation of a coalition. 5 empires uniting to eliminate the human threat. They think the humans are weak because they lost ships at Blackwater. They are wrong. The humans are terrifying because they lost ships at Blackwater and consider it an acceptable trade. He sent his report to the Galactic Council. Then he requested permission to visit Earth itself. He needed to understand where this capacity for calculated sacrifice came from. The Council approved his request within hours. They were scared now. They wanted answers. Rith was scared too. But he was also fascinated. Humans were prey species with predator instincts, peaceful diplomats with warrior souls. They smiled while planning for war. What kind of species evolved to be both? He was going to find out. Rain fell on Earth in ways that terrified Rith. Water dropped from the sky with enough force to kill small creatures. The humans walked through it without concern, barely noticing when it soaked their clothing. This planet tried to drown its inhabitants daily, and they had adapted by simply not caring. General Robert Shaw met Rith at the military academy outside a city called Denver. The general was old by human standards, his hair gray and his face lined with scars. He shook Rith's hand with a grip that could crush bone if he chose. Welcome to Earth, Shaw said. We will show you everything. The Council wants to understand us. Fair enough. Time you saw what you were dealing with. The academy sprawled across a mountain range. Thousands of young humans trained there, learning warfare. Rith watched them run through obstacle courses that would kill most species. They climbed walls, swam through freezing water, and fought each other in controlled combat. They are children, Rith said, watching a group that could not be more than 20 years old. They are soldiers in training, Shaw corrected. Childhood ends early for warriors. The general took Rith through classrooms where humans studied battle tactics from thousands of years of history. Rith saw names he recognized from his research. Sun Tzu, Alexander, Napoleon, Patton. Humans had been documenting warfare since they invented writing. How many wars has humanity fought? Rith asked. Shaw thought for a moment. Major conflicts? Thousands, if we count every battle, every skirmish, every fight between groups. Millions. We have been at war with someone for 97% of recorded history. But you have peace now. United government. One species. We have peace because we got tired of killing each other and found better targets. Shaw said it without humor. Humans need conflict. It is in our nature. So we found ways to satisfy that need without destroying ourselves. Sports, competition, exploration, and when necessary, we directed outward. They entered a building filled with computer simulations. Humans sat at stations, fighting virtual battles against virtual enemies. Rith watched one simulation where humans fought a fleet invasion. The human forces lost badly. The student running the simulation cursed and reset it, trying different tactics. They practice losing? Rith asked. They practice everything, winning, losing, fighting with advantages, fighting outnumbered, fighting in every terrain and condition we can imagine. Shaw pulled up a list. This year's curriculum includes 40 different scenarios. Everything from ship-to-ship combat to ground assault to defending against biological weapons. You teach them to fight species that do not exist yet? Yes, because someday they might exist, or someone might use those tactics against us. Preparation is survival. Shaw selected another simulation. Watch this one. The simulation showed humans fighting humans. Ship designs were identical. Tactics mirrored each other. The battle was brutal and efficient. We practice fighting ourselves more than anyone else, Shaw explained, because we know how dangerous we are. If we can beat ourselves, we can beat anyone. That evening, Shaw took Rith to the Academy archive. Rows of data cores contained every piece of human military knowledge. Battle reports, strategy analyses, weapons designs, psychological profiles of soldiers from 10,000 years of warfare. This is our real arsenal, Shaw said. Any species can build weapons. But knowledge, experience, institutional memory, that takes time. We have had time. Rith selected a random file. It detailed a battle from 3,000 years ago. 2 human nations fighting over territory. The tactics described were primitive by galactic standards, but the strategic thinking was sophisticated. Humans had understood flanking maneuvers, supply line disruption, and psychological warfare before they had even developed electricity. You industrialized warfare, Rith said slowly. Turned it into a science. We turned it into everything. Science, art, philosophy, religion. War touches every part of human culture. Shaw pulled up images. These are ancient temples dedicated to war gods. These are paintings of famous battles. These are songs soldiers sang going into combat. We process warfare through every creative medium we have. They spent hours in the archive. Rith learned about human military philosophy, the concept of acceptable casualties, the idea of strategic retreat, the doctrine of total war, the ethics of proportional response. Humans had thought about warfare from every possible angle. You could have destroyed the Krell fleet at Blackwater faster, Rith said. I saw the battle analysis. Your ships were holding back, Shaw nodded. We wanted them to know they could hurt us. Wanted them to think they were winning. Right up until we showed them they were wrong. Fear is a weapon. Sometimes it is the best weapon. That is cruel. War is cruel. We did not invent that. We just got better at it than anyone else. Shaw closed the archive files. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? It is not our weapons or our tactics. It is that we have spent 10,000 years fighting the smartest, most adaptable, most creative enemy in the galaxy. Ourselves. Rith spent 3 weeks at the academy. He watched human soldiers train in deserts, jungles, Arctic conditions, and underwater. They practiced in environments that would kill them without protection, learning to fight anywhere. He watched them study alien biology, looking for weaknesses in species they had never met. He attended lectures on military ethics. Humans had complex rules about what was acceptable in warfare. They argued constantly about where lines should be drawn. But Rith noticed something disturbing. The arguments were about how much violence was acceptable, not whether violence was acceptable at all. On his last day, Shaw took him to a memorial. A simple wall with billions of names carved into it. Every human who had died in warfare throughout history. We remember, Shaw said quietly. Every single one. Every soldier, every civilian, every casualty of every war we ever fought. This is why we prepare. This is why we train, so their deaths were not meaningless. You honor warriors who killed each other. We honor the dead regardless of which side they fought on. Death in war is death. It all counts. Shaw touched the wall gently. This is what the Krell do not understand. We know the cost of war. We have paid it over and over. When we go to war now, we do it with full knowledge of what it means. Rith flew back to the council station with his mind full of terrible knowledge. Humans were not naturally violent. They had learned violence through necessity and perfected it through practice. They could be peaceful. They could be diplomatic. But when peace failed, they became something that 10,000 years of warfare had created. They became efficient, ruthless, and absolutely committed to victory. He wrote his report on the journey back. Humans are not warriors by nature. They are survivors who learned that the best way to survive was to become better at war than anyone else. They studied themselves, fought themselves, and emerged as a species that understands combat at a level other species never needed to reach, recommending extreme caution in future dealings. The report reached the council the same day news arrived. The coalition of 5 empires had assembled the largest war fleet in galactic history. 2,000 ships heading directly for Earth. The Krell wanted revenge. 4 other empires had joined them, seeing humans as a threat that needed to be eliminated. Rith read the news and felt sick. The coalition was making a terrible mistake. They saw Blackwater as proof that humans were weak. They were wrong. Blackwater was proof that humans would die before surrendering. There was a difference. A huge, terrifying difference. He sent one more message to the Council. The coalition is not invading Earth. They are walking into a trap built over 10,000 years. Whatever happens next, it will change the galaxy forever. Then he requested permission to observe the battle. The Council agreed immediately. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when someone tried to invade the human homeworld. Rith suspected they would regret it. Space itself seemed to hold its breath. Rith watched from the Council observation ship as the coalition fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. 2,000 warships, the combined military might of 5 empires, enough firepower to sterilize a dozen planets. Earth lay ahead, a blue sphere turning slowly in the dark, defenseless, alone. Or so the coalition believed. The coalition admiral broadcast on all frequencies. Humans. You have 48 hours to surrender your homeworld. Evacuate or be destroyed. This is your only warning. Rith expected Patricia Hayes to respond. Instead, a different voice came through the communication channel. Admiral Karen Wright, Earth Defense Command. Her voice was flat and cold. Surrender is not in our vocabulary. You want Earth? Come and take it. The coalition fleet began moving. 3 massive formations, each approaching from different vectors. Standard invasion tactics. Overwhelming force. Multiple attack angles. They would surround Earth and bombard it until nothing remained. For 6 hours, nothing happened. The coalition fleet advanced slowly, scanning for human ships. Sensors detected 400 human vessels scattered across the system. Respectable force, but outnumbered 5 to 1. Then the asteroid started shooting. Rith watched in confusion as weapons fire erupted from what he had thought were lifeless rocks. Dozens of asteroids in the belt were actually disguised weapons platforms. Railguns hurled projectiles at near light speed. Missiles swarmed out from hidden bays. The coalition vanguard ran straight into the kill zone. 30 ships exploded in the first minute. Survivors scattered trying to evade, but the asteroids had been positioned perfectly. Every escape route led through overlapping fields of fire. How? Casson whispered. We scanned the system. Those asteroids registered as inert rock. Humans have been preparing this for decades, Rith said, checking his data. They militarized their entire home system. Every moon, every station, every piece of debris large enough to hold a weapon. The coalition forces regrouped, destroying the weapons platforms with concentrated fire. But it cost them. 200 ships damaged, 80 destroyed, and the human fleet had not even engaged yet. Admiral Wright's voice came through again. You have lost 10% of your forces to automated defenses. Still want to continue? The coalition admiral responded with rage. Attack! All forces advance on Earth immediately. The human fleet appeared. Not from where sensors had detected them. They had been running dark. No power signatures invisible to scanning technology. 400 ships materialized from the black, surrounding the coalition forces. The battle became chaos. Human ships moved with precision, targeting command vessels and support craft. They ignored the heavily armored battleships and went for the ships that coordinated fleet movements. Within minutes, coalition formations began to fragment. Rith watched a human destroyer exchange fire with a Krell cruiser 3 times its size. The destroyer's hull burned. Its shields failed, but its captain never retreated. The ship launched a spread of missiles while simultaneously ramming the cruiser's port side. Both ships exploded, but the cruiser's reactor breach took 2 nearby coalition ships with it. They are trading again, Casson said. 1 ship for multiple enemies. It is not trading, Rith corrected. It is hunting. They are choosing targets carefully. Every human ship that dies takes valuable coalition assets with it. The coalition tried to regroup near Mars. It was a mistake. The planet's orbital platforms activated. 200 weapons batteries that the coalition had assumed were civilian installations. Heavy railguns, plasma cannons, missile clusters. The firepower was staggering. Mars had been turned into a fortress and the coalition had flown right next to it. The bombardment lasted 14 hours. Human ships herded coalition forces into optimal firing positions. When coalition ships tried to escape, human vessels blocked their path, forcing them to stay in the kill zone. The mathematics of warfare became simple. Stay and die to Mars platforms. Run and die to human ships. The coalition admiral finally broadcast a surrender.
Enough! We yield!
We request terms. Admiral Wright responded immediately. Request denied. Silence filled every channel. Then the coalition admiral spoke again, his voice shaking. You must accept surrender. Galactic conventions require it. Those are your conventions, not ours. Wright's voice carried no emotion. You came to exterminate us. Now you will learn what extermination means. The human fleet stopped herding. They started hunting. Coalition ships scattered across the system, and human vessels pursued them individually. No mercy, no quarter. Every coalition ship was tracked down and destroyed. Rith watched it happen over 3 days. The largest military fleet ever assembled, reduced to scattered wrecks and frozen bodies. Human ships damaged beyond repair continued fighting until their reactors failed. Human captains with no ammunition left rammed enemy vessels. Human crews with failing life support held their positions, ensuring coalition ships could not escape. By the 4th day, it was over. Of the 2,000 coalition ships, fewer than 200 escaped back to faster than light speed. 1,200 were destroyed outright. The rest were crippled wrecks drifting through the system. The human fleet had been reduced to 73 functional ships. But Earth still turned peacefully in the dark, untouched. Rith requested permission to speak with Admiral Wright. To his surprise, she agreed to a video call. She looked tired. Her uniform was wrinkled. Her eyes had the 1,000-yard stare Rith had read about in human military psychology texts. You did not accept surrender, Rith said carefully. They did not come here to offer terms. They came to exterminate us. We simply returned the favor. Wright rubbed her face. You want to know if we are monsters now? If crossing that line changed us, did it? We have always been capable of this. Every human carries the capacity for terrible violence. We just choose not to use it most of the time. She looked directly at the camera. But when someone tries to kill everyone we love, every person on our home world, every child and elder and dreamer, we stop choosing restraint. We become what we need to be. The coalition will retaliate, Wright smiled. It was the coldest expression Rith had ever seen. Let them try. We are not finished. Not even close. The transmission ended. Rith sat in the dark, understanding the truth. The Battle of Sol was not the end. It was the beginning. Humans had defended their home. Now they would go on the offensive. They would carry the war to coalition space. They would make sure this never happened again. Rith checked the news feeds. Human fleets were already forming up. Not defensive forces. Invasion forces. The humans were going to strike the coalition home worlds. He wrote in his log, the coalition made a fundamental error. They assumed humans would fight like other species, defend their territory and accept peace when the battle ended. But humans do not think that way. To humans, war is not over until the enemy can never threaten them again. The coalition started a war. Humans intend to finish it. That night, Rith could not sleep. He kept seeing the same image. Human ships burning in space, dying to protect their home, but not retreating. Never surrendering. Just killing and dying until the threat was gone. The coalition had brought 2,000 ships to exterminate humanity. They had failed. Now they would learn what happened when you failed to exterminate a species that had spent 10,000 years learning how to fight. The humans were coming. And Rith suspected the coalition had no idea what that really meant. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, Rith found himself in orbit above Krell Prime. The coalition homeworld turned below, its cities glittering with lights. From space it looked peaceful. Beautiful even. But 16 human warships surrounded the planet like predators circling wounded prey. No bombs fell. No missiles launched. The humans just waited. Rith had followed the human 7th Fleet across coalition space, documenting their campaign. What he witnessed was not warfare as he understood it. It was something colder, more calculated. The humans were not trying to win quickly. They were teaching a lesson. General Shaw, now promoted to admiral, commanded the 7th Fleet from his flagship. He granted Rith permission to observe from the bridge. The general stood at the central display, watching Krell ships trying to break through the blockade. They have tried to escape 16 times, Shaw said without turning. We destroy the ships that attempt it. The rest stay in port, trapped. You could destroy the planet from orbit, Rith observed. End this quickly. We could. We won't. Shaw finally looked at him. That would be mercy. We are not here for mercy. We are here to make sure this never happens again. The blockade had been in place for 40 days. No ships in, no ships out. Trade stopped. Resources dwindled. The Krell military grew desperate while their civilians watched their economy collapse. Every day the humans broadcast the same message. Recordings of coalition leaders laughing about exterminating humanity. Plans to sterilize Earth. Orders to kill every human civilian. The Krell population heard their own leaders condemning them to this fate. Psychological warfare, Rith said. Truth warfare, Shaw corrected. We are not lying. Just making sure everyone knows what their leaders planned, what they tried to do. The Krell people are starting to ask questions, starting to wonder if this war was worth it. Rith watched the planet below. Civil unrest had begun, protests, riots, the Krell military was fracturing. Some officers wanted to surrender. Others wanted to fight to the death. The humans simply waited, letting the Krell destroy themselves from within. On day 53, the Krell government surrendered unconditionally. They agreed to every human demand, complete disarmament, war crime tribunals, reparations, anything to end the blockade. Shaw accepted the surrender. Then the arrests began. Human Marines deployed to the planet's surface, not to occupy, to collect. They had lists, names, every military leader who had planned the invasion, every politician who had voted for it, every commander who had given the order to attack civilian targets. Rith accompanied the arrest teams. He watched human soldiers move through Krell cities with perfect discipline. No looting, no revenge killings, no random violence. They went to specific addresses, collected specific individuals, and departed. You are taking prisoners, Rith said. I expected executions. We are not barbarians, the Marine commander replied. They will stand trial. They will face justice. But it will be proper justice with evidence and procedure. The trials began within a week. Human lawyers presented evidence, communications, battle recordings, testimony from survivors. The coalition leaders sat in courtroom cells watching as their own words condemned them. Rith attended every session. The trials were fair by any standard. The accused had lawyers. They could present evidence. They could appeal. But the evidence was overwhelming. The coalition had planned genocide. They had attempted it. The only reason they failed was because humans had been stronger. Verdicts came quickly. Guilty. Every single one. The sentences were execution. The Krell public expected public executions. Spectacle, revenge. Instead, the humans did it quietly. One at a time. Quick and painless. Then they released the bodies to the families for proper burial. Where is the revenge? Cassin asked Rith. Where is the cruelty? The humans should be destroying everything. This is worse than destruction, Rith realized. They are being civilized, professional, following their own laws. It makes the coalition look like barbarians by comparison. The pattern repeated across coalition space. The Tarvek Empire, the Brenlin Confederation, the Zolar Hegemony. Each coalition member world received the same treatment. Blockade, psychological pressure, surrender, tribunals, justice. Human fleets never bombarded civilian centers, never targeted non-military infrastructure, never committed the atrocities they could have. They fought with restraint even while winning. Rith interviewed human soldiers across the campaign. Everyone told him the same thing. They had rules. They followed rules, even in war. Especially in war. We have seen what happens when rules disappear, one soldier explained. Our history is full of genocides and atrocities. We learned. We decided there had to be a better way. So we made rules and we follow them, even when our enemies do not. The war ended after 97 days. Every coalition world surrendered. Every military leader stood trial. The galaxy watched as humans reshaped 5 empires without destroying them. They removed the leadership. They dismantled the military forces. But they left the civilians alone. Rith wrote his observations. The humans could have exterminated the coalition. The firepower was available. The justification existed. Instead, they chose to prove they were better than their enemies. This restraint is more terrifying than violence would have been. It shows calculation, planning, control. A species that can choose mercy after being attacked is a species that understands power. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Every member attended. The question was simple. What do we do about humanity? Some wanted isolation. Keep humans away from the rest of the galaxy. Others wanted alliance. Make humans partners before they became conquerors. Rith listened to the debate for hours. Finally, he requested permission to speak. You are asking the wrong question, he said. You cannot isolate humans. You cannot control them. They have proven they are stronger than 5 empires combined. The question is not what we do about humanity. The question is what humanity decides to do about us. The council chamber fell silent. They could conquer us, Rith continued. Right now, today, they have the ships. They have the will. They have proven they can win against any opposition. But they have not attacked council space, have not threatened neutral worlds, have not done anything except defend themselves and punish those who attack them. What are you suggesting? The council leader asked. That we invite them to join us, not as members seeking approval, as equals we need. Rith pulled up casualty reports. The humans lost thousands of ships and millions of lives defending their homes. They did not start this war, but they finished it. They showed mercy when they could have shown cruelty. That is the species we want as allies, not enemies. The debate continued for days. Finally, a vote was called. The result was close but clear. Humanity would be offered full council membership. Not as newcomers, as partners. Rith was chosen to deliver the invitation to Earth. He traveled back to Sol system, past the debris fields that still orbited like monuments to the battle, past the weapons platforms that still pointed outward, ready for the next threat. Patricia Hayes met him in the same chamber where they had first spoken almost a year ago. She looked older now, tired, but her eyes were still sharp. The council has decided? She asked. Full membership, all rights and privileges, immediate acceptance. Rith paused. We are afraid of you, but we would rather have you as friends than face you as enemies. Patricia smiled, the real smile this time that reached her eyes. We prefer friendship too. War is exhausting. Peace is better. But we will always be ready for war. That will never change. I understand. Rith handed her the formal documentation. The galaxy wants to know. Are humans done fighting? Patricia looked at the papers, then back at him. Humans are never done fighting. We will always have enemies, always face threats, but we can choose who we fight. We can choose when, and we can choose to fight alongside others instead of alone. The council is grateful. The council is scared. Patricia corrected gently. That is fine. Fear is reasonable. We are scary, but we can be controlled scary. Directed scary. We can be the force that protects instead of the force that destroys. Rith left Earth understanding the truth. The galaxy had not tamed humanity. Humanity had simply decided to cooperate, for now. As long as it served their interests, as long as no one threatened them again. The humans were the largest predator in the galaxy. They had proven it. Now everyone else had to learn to live with that fact. The Galactic Council chambers had witnessed thousands of debates over the centuries. Today's session would be remembered as the most important. Rith stood at the speaker's platform, his research displayed on screens that surrounded the circular room. Every council member attended. Every eye watched him. For 1 year I have studied humanity, Rith began. The council asked me to understand them, to explain what makes them different. Today I present my findings. He pulled up an image of Earth, the blue planet that had birthed a species the galaxy now feared. Humans are unique in one critical way. They are the only species in known space that evolved by fighting themselves. Most species had external predators, natural threats that shaped their evolution. Humans were their own predators. Rith showed images from human history, wars spanning millennia, weapons growing more sophisticated with each generation, strategies becoming more complex as humans learned from each conflict. For 10,000 years, humans fought the smartest, most adaptable enemy in their galaxy. Other humans. Every tactic they developed had to work against opponents as intelligent as themselves. Every weapon had to defeat defenses created by minds identical to their own. This created something unprecedented, a species that understands warfare at a fundamental level. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Rith continued. Other species fight to win resources, to gain territory, to establish dominance. Humans fight for all these reasons and more. They fight for ideas, for principles, for revenge, and most importantly, they fight to ensure they never have to fight that war again. He pulled up casualty reports from the Coalition War. Humans lost 2,300 ships, 4 million soldiers and civilians. These numbers are devastating. Yet humans call this war a victory. Why? Because the Coalition lost more. Because the Coalition can never threaten them again. Because the lesson was taught. What lesson? The council leader asked. That attacking humans costs more than victory is worth. That humans will sacrifice everything to protect their own. That mercy is a choice humans make, not a weakness they possess. Rith met the leader's eyes. The Coalition thought humans were weak because they asked for peace. They were wrong. Humans asked for peace because war is horrible and they know it. But when peace failed, they became what 10,000 years of evolution created. Perfect warriors. He showed footage from the Battle of Sol. Human ships dying to protect Earth. Captains sacrificing themselves without hesitation. Crews fighting until their final breath. This is not suicidal behavior. This is calculated sacrifice. Every human death served a purpose. Protected other humans. Destroyed more enemy ships. Delayed enemy advances. Humans do not waste their lives. They spend them like currency buying victory. The presentation shifted to the occupation of Coalition worlds. Trials. Executions. Rebuilding. Humans could have exterminated the Coalition. Instead, they chose justice. They proved they were better than their enemies. This terrifies me more than their violence. A species that can choose mercy after such provocation is a species that understands power completely. Rith paused, letting the information sink in. Then he delivered his final conclusion. Humans are not the strongest species, not the smartest, not the fastest, but they are the most dangerous because they prepare for everything. They study their enemies. They practice constantly. They learn from every mistake. And most importantly, they remember. He showed images of human memorials, walls covered with names, statues honoring the dead, museums preserving battle histories. Humans never forget their wars, never forget their losses. This memory drives them to prepare, to train, to ensure they are ready for the next threat. They teach warfare to their children. They celebrate military history. They process violence through art and literature and philosophy. You are saying they glorify war, a council member accused. No. They understand war. They know its cost intimately. They hate it. But they are comfortable with it. They can shift from peace to war instantly because war is always present in their culture, just beneath the surface. Rith pulled up his final image. Human children playing in a schoolyard, acting out battles with toy weapons. This is what makes them truly terrifying. Humans raise every generation to be ready for war, just in case. They hope for peace but prepare for violence. This creates a species that can never be truly surprised, never truly unprepared. The council chambers erupted in debate. Some members wanted to reject human membership, keep them isolated. Others argued for immediate alliance. Finally, the council leader called for silence. What do you recommend, researcher Rith? Rith took a breath. This was the moment his entire report had built toward. Accept them. Make them allies. Give them a purpose. He gestured to the star maps. The galaxy is large. There are threats beyond our borders, pirates, rogue states, unknown dangers. Let humans be our military force. Let them protect council space. Give them enemies to fight so they do not become bored and look for new challenges. You want to weaponize them? They are already weapons. I want to aim them at our enemies instead of wondering when they might aim at us. Rith's voice grew stronger. Humans asked to join us peacefully. They tried diplomacy first. Only when attacked did they show their true strength. This shows restraint, wisdom. These are qualities we need. The vote was called. After hours of debate, the decision came. Humanity would join the Galactic Council as full members. More than that, they would serve as the Council's military force, the protectors of galactic peace. Rith traveled to Earth one final time to deliver the news. Patricia Hayes received him in her office overlooking the rebuilding of New Perth Colony. The Council has decided, Rith said. You are now our defenders, our military force, our protectors. Patricia nodded slowly. And if we refuse? Then we close borders and hope you never decide to expand. Rith said it honestly. But I do not think you will refuse. Humans need purpose, need challenges. This gives you both. Patricia looked out at the stars. We did not want war. We wanted peace. But if the price of peace is serving as guardians, we will pay it. Why? Rith asked. Why accept this burden? Because we know what happens when evil goes unchallenged. We have seen it in our own history. Genocides, atrocities, suffering. If we can prevent that for other species, we will. She turned to face him. We are good at violence. We might as well use it for good. Rith left Earth for the final time. His research was complete. His report filed. His observations documented. The galaxy now knew what humanity was, what they could do, what they would do. In his final log entry, he wrote, I came to study a species. I witnessed something else. Humans are not monsters. They are survivors who learned that the best defense is overwhelming offense. They are philosophers who think deeply about violence. They are artists who process war through culture. They are all of this and more. I saw humanity march to war. I saw them fight with precision and fury. I saw them win against impossible odds. I saw them show mercy when they could have shown cruelty. And at the end, I saw them smile. Not from joy and violence, but from satisfaction that they had protected their own. That is why the stars fear them. Not because they are cruel, but because they are effective. They know how to fight. They know how to win. And they know how to make sure their enemies never threaten them again. The galaxy is safer with humans as protectors. But we must never forget what they are capable of. We must never give them reason to turn that capacity against us. We must remember that humans chose to be our allies, and choice can always change. Rith closed his logs and looked out at Earth one last time. The blue planet turned peacefully in the dark, home to billions of humans who were simultaneously the most peaceful and most dangerous species in the galaxy. The stars did not fear humans because they were monsters. The stars feared humans because they were warriors who chose when to fight. Warriors who prepared constantly, warriors who never forgot. And most terrifying of all, warriors who were absolutely certain they could win against anyone, anywhere, anytime, because for 10,000 years, they already had.